I was in the heart of Detroit, Michigan, staying at an upscale Marriott hotel. That morning had started at 3 a.m., up before the sun to catch a 6 a.m. flight. I landed in Detroit at 8:30, grabbed a rental, and was on site by 9 a.m. sharp. I worked straight through until 5 p.m. By the time I got back to my hotel, I was exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't fix. My body shut down. I laid down and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up, I was still groggy, but I checked my email. That's when everything shifted. There was a message from my boss stating that my request to take a required professional development course was being denied, and that if I wanted to participate in it, I would owe her time. I stared at the screen in disbelief. I had already put in over 12 hours that day, yet I was only being paid for 30 hours a week. I had recently petitioned to return to full-time status after going part-time to care for my mother, who had been sick and had recently passed away. I was given everything I had, yet this was the response. I was angry, I was hurt, and I was deeply conflicted. I knew that if I responded to that email in the moment, I would likely lose my job. I knew I didn't want that. So instead of replying, I closed the email and I opened the next email in my inbox. Strangely enough, it was an email titled Chinese Proverbs. One line stopped me cold. You can buy a watch, but you can't buy time. That proverb spoke directly to my spirit. Still unsettled, I went downstairs to the hotel bar and restaurant and sat at the bar, not for a cocktail, but for just a cup of hot tea. The bar had a beautiful green ceramic countertop, and it sat in the midst of a nice restaurant where I had eaten earlier that day. The tea was very soothing to my soul. However, I still needed to process what had just happened. Once I finished my tea, I decided to go up to the rooftop track. The air up there was cool and crisp. As I walked, I prayed. I asked God for clarity because I truly didn't know what to do. By the third lap, I heard it. That still small voice said, resign. I stopped walking. No, I said out loud, that can't be the answer. Resigning without another job? That felt reckless, terrifying. My job defined me at that point in my life. I was already grieving my mother, and I didn't want to unravel everything else too. But the answer didn't change. It came with peace and with explanation. These people are not paying you what you're worth. You've been working in a hostile work environment for months. Your children need you now more than ever, and your income has already been partially replaced. That night, I barely slept. I wrestled with fear, identity, and uncertainty. Even though I had been working in a hostile environment for most of that year, leaving still felt impossible. I didn't want to be one of those people whose entire life unraveled after the loss of a parent. I prayed on it, I sat on it, and a few days later, with clarity and conviction, I made the decision. I resigned. Looking back now, I can say without hesitation, that decision was one of the best decisions I made in my life. It taught me faith, not the comfortable kind, but the kind where you build the bridge as you're walking across it. It freed my spirit. It allowed me to finish my school semester strong. And at the very end of the semester, I created a strategic plan for my health enterprise that later became Divine Fitness and Health Services Incorporated. What felt like a risky resignation was actually an act of obedience that became the foundation of my entrepreneurship. Divine Fitness wasn't born out of convenience or comfort. It was born out of courage, faith, and the decision to finally honor myself.